Most people know the internet we use every day, but there's another side of it, hidden websites that don't appear on Google, private forums, strange live streams, places you're not supposed to find. The 3 stories in this video come from people who claim they went looking out of curiosity and found something deeply disturbing. What they saw on the deep web still follows them to this day. And after hearing their experiences, you might think twice before ever trying to explore it yourself. This happened when I was a junior at Ohio State back in 2019. I was studying computer science, and like a lot of people in that program, I had developed a bad habit of going down rabbit holes late at night when I should have been sleeping. I wasn't looking for anything in particular. I had a Tor browser installed mostly out of curiosity, the same way a lot of people do in college, telling themselves it's for research or just to see what the fuss was about. I'd been on it maybe a handful of times before. Never found anything interesting. Mostly forums that looked like they were designed in 2003, people talking about privacy software, that kind of thing. One night in February, it was around 2 a.m, snow coming down outside my dorm window. I stumbled onto a site through a forum link someone had posted in a thread about abandoned corners of the internet. The link was labeled something like mirror_archive_v2. No context. Someone had just dropped it there and left. The site loaded slowly. It was mostly black. There was no text on the home page. Just a grid of small rectangles arranged in rows like thumbnails, but each one was completely dark. Maybe 40 or 50 of them total. The title bar just said Rooms. I hovered over one of the thumbnails. It brightened slightly, and I realized it was a live feed. A room viewed from above like a security camera mounted in a corner of a ceiling. The image was grainy and green-tinted, the way old night vision looks. The room was small. There was a cot, a sink, a metal chair. Nothing else. No one was in it. I moved to another thumbnail. Same thing, different room, same setup. Cot, sink, chair. Empty. I went through maybe 15 of them. All the same. All empty. I figured it was some kind of art project, maybe an installation piece, or a privacy researcher running honeypot rooms or something. Then I opened the 16th one. There was a person in it. They were sitting in the metal chair with their back to the camera, completely still. They were wearing what looked like a gray sweatshirt. Their head was slightly bowed. I watched for almost a minute, and they didn't move once. Not even the small shifts a person makes when they're just sitting. It looked like a still image, except the time stop in the corner was ticking forward in real time. I opened another person, also sitting with their back to the camera, also completely still. I opened a third. This one was different. The person was facing the camera, except they were lying on the cot, staring directly up at the ceiling, which meant they were staring directly into the lens. Their eyes were open. They weren't blinking, or they were blinking so infrequently I missed it. I watched for 3 minutes. They just stared up. I closed the browser. I sat there for a while, trying to think of a rational explanation. Maybe these were sleep study volunteers, or some kind of sensory deprivation experiment. Maybe it was a performance art piece. Maybe the people in the rooms had consented to be filmed, and I was the weird one for watching. I went back the next night. I told myself I'd just check, see if it was still up, maybe read some source code, try to find a contact page or a description. The site loaded. The grid was still there, but this time one of the thumbnails near the bottom right was brighter than the others. I clicked it. It was a room like all the rest, but the camera angle was different from the others. It was lower, mounted maybe at shoulder height on a wall instead of ceiling mounted, and the room wasn't empty. Someone was sitting at a desk with a laptop open. From the angle, I could make out the shape of the screen, and on the screen I could see a grid of small dark thumbnails. They were looking at the same site I was looking at. I stared at that for a long time, long enough to notice that their cursor was moving slowly across their grid, long enough to feel my pulse in my throat, long enough to wonder which thumbnail they were hovering over. I never went back to that site. I uninstalled the browser that night. I told myself it was a loop, a trick. Someone had just embedded a webcam feed of themselves using the site to create a visual trick, like two mirrors facing each other. But I had never turned on my webcam that night, and the room in that last thumbnail had a window. It was snowing outside. I used to work night shifts at a network operations center in Vancouver. This was 2021, during the period when a lot of companies were running skeleton crews because of the pandemic. My job was basically babysitting servers, monitoring traffic patterns, escalating anything unusual. Most nights, nothing happened. You drink bad coffee and watch dashboards and try not to fall asleep. We had a junior tech named Darren who had been there about 4 months. Quiet guy, mid-20s, always brought the same lunch even at 2 in the morning, a sandwich and an orange every single night. We didn't talk much, but we got along. The kind of coworker you appreciate for not being loud. One night in March, around 3 a.m., Darren called me over to his station. He said he'd been seeing recurring, anomalous traffic on one of the smaller internal nodes. Not a security breach. Nothing triggering our actual alerts, just a pattern he'd noticed manually. A spike of outbound data every night, same node, always between 2:58 and 3:04 a.m., consistent down to the minute. We looked at it together. He was right. Small bursts, not large enough to be a major file transfer, but too regular to be normal background chatter, and always at that window. We ran it up the chain. Our supervisor told us it was probably an automated backup or a poorly configured update schedule. He said he'd look into it. He never did, as far as I could tell, and I forgot about it for a while. About 3 weeks later, Darren came to me again. He'd been logging the traffic manually on his own time. He'd also done something I wouldn't have thought to do. He'd traced the destination IPs. Not all of them resolved cleanly, but a few of them pointed to a cluster of servers registered to a holding company with an address in Nevada. When he looked up the company, it didn't have a website, just a registration number and a registered agent. I told him to leave it alone. I said some corporate clients run weird internal infrastructure, and it wasn't our job to investigate unless it triggered an official alert. He nodded and said okay. The next week he didn't come in for his shift. His supervisor said he'd called in sick. Then he called in sick again. Then after a week of no contact, HR said he'd resigned. No notice, no explanation, nothing turned in, just stopped showing up. I didn't think too much about it. People ghost jobs. It happens. About 2 months later, I got a message through LinkedIn from an account I didn't recognize. The profile had no photo, no connections, no employment history. Just a name. It wasn't Darren's name. But the message said, "Don't look at the traffic logs from March. I'm serious. Delete this." I read it 3 times. Then I went to reply and the account was already gone. Not deactivated in the normal way, just gone, like it had never existed. I did what the message said. I went back into our logging system and looked at the archived traffic records from March. Our system retained 90 days. The file was there. I opened it. The entries from the 2:58 to 3:04 window were present right up until the night Darren first showed them to me. After that night, the entries for that window were still there in the log, but the destination IP fields were blank, not corrupted, not missing, just replaced with empty strings, as though someone had gone in and manually scrubbed them after the fact. Someone with access to our system, or someone who had gotten access to it. I put in my notice 2 weeks later. I told my manager it was for personal reasons. I still sometimes open LinkedIn and search for Darren's name. There are a few people with the same name. None of them are him. Last month I got an email to an address I only ever used for work. The subject line was blank. The body contained a single line of text. The frequency hasn't changed. Back in 2020, when everything was shut down and nobody had anything to do, I developed a hobby I'm not proud of. I started browsing obscure Craigslist listings. Not for anything specific, just as a kind of weird entertainment. There's a whole category of people who do this. You find missed connections that read like short stories, free stuff listings that raise more questions than they answer, gigs that make no sense. It's like a low-level glimpse into the actual texture of people's lives. I was living alone in a 1-bedroom in Minneapolis at the time. My girlfriend and I had broken up in January just before everything locked down, so the timing was ideal for a complete descent into weird internet behavior. In July, I found a listing in the community section, not for Minneapolis, but for a smaller city in northern Minnesota, a place called Hibbing. The listing had no title. The subject fields just said, "House." That was it. The body of the listing was a single paragraph. It said something like, "We have been here for 11 years and we would like someone to know what we found. We are not able to contact authorities directly. If you are reading this, please look up the property records for..." And then it gave a specific address. Then it said, "The records will not match what is there. Please understand that we cannot say more here." There was no name, no contact information, no way to reply through the listing because they hadn't enabled replies. I don't know what made me do it. Boredom, probably that particular kind of pandemic boredom where the walls of your apartment start to feel like they're breathing. But I looked up the address. It was a real address. I found it in the county property database. The record listed the parcel as a vacant lot, undeveloped, assessed at basically nothing. But when I dropped the address into a satellite map, there was clearly a structure there, a house, a driveway, what looked like an outbuilding, trees around it, but definitely occupied, or recently occupied. I searched the address a few more ways. Found nothing, no permits, no utility records I could access publicly, no news. The property had been vacant according to county records for over 30 years, but the satellite image was from the previous spring, and the structure was clearly maintained. I screenshot everything and kept it in a folder on my desktop. Told myself I'd think about it later. 3 days after I found the listing, it was gone. I had expected that Craigslist removes posts after a certain time, but I had saved the URL, and when I went back to it, the removal notice said it had been flagged and removed by Craigslist for violating terms of service. Not expired, flagged. I sat with this for about a week, and then I posted about it on a true crime forum, not the address, just the story, asking if anyone else had seen it or had any context for that area. I got one reply from an account that had been registered the same day I made the post. The reply said, "We saw your question. You should know that the family that posted the listing no longer has access to the internet. We don't know what they told you, but it wasn't accurate. Don't visit the property." The account was deleted before I could respond. I reported what I had to a tip line, not local police, but one of the national ones that handles situations where local law enforcement might be compromised or irrelevant. I sent the address, the screenshots, a description of what I'd found. I got an automated response saying the tip had been received. That was 4 years ago. I've never heard anything back. I've checked the property on satellite maps 3 more times. The house was still there as of last year. I've thought about that phrase a lot. The family no longer has access to the internet. Not that they moved, not that they were fine, just that specific mechanical phrase, like they were describing a utility being disconnected. Last spring, I searched the address 1 more time. On the satellite map, the structure was gone. The lot showed as cleared, just trees. The county property record still says it's vacant. It has always said it's vacant,